Welcome to Speak. You have to hear what Cowboys owner Jerry Jones just said. But before we get to that, I'm Emmanuel Acho. I got my guy Dave Helman. So glad you're here because you know everything about the boys. Joy Taylor, we already know who she is. 2-5, 2 Live, Eagles all-time running back, Shady McCoy. But as I said earlier, Jerry Jones with some crazy comments. Y'all take a listen.
So you'd want that? You'd want that controversy?
Of course I would.
Okay.
Oh, of course that means we'd won. If it comes in there and played as well as Prescott played, Rush played that well over these next games ahead, I'd walk to New York to get that.
I would walk to New York to get that. This is wild. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones simply saying he wants a controversy with Cooper Rush, backup undrafted quarterback, and Dak Prescott. Now, at face value, it sounds crazy. Sounds crazy. But, America, I was in Dallas in 2016 working for the Cowboys in media alongside Dave Helman when Dak Prescott replaced Tony Romo. I was in Dallas when Dak Prescott replaced an injured Tony Romo, week 3 of the preseason. Seattle Seahawks. Romo gets hurt. Dak Prescott replaces him, and Dak played so well. No, the Cowboys played so well that even when Romo was available in week 10, Romo did not get his job back. Romo is more beloved than Dak Prescott by that organization, by that franchise, and by Jerry Jones, so it's not that far-fetched. Now, what you might say is this. There's no way Cooper Rush can play well enough to keep Dak Prescott on the bench. To that, I would retort, Dak Prescott only had 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions when he kept Tony Romo on the bench in 2016. Dak Prescott was no world beater, but the Cowboys were beating everybody in the world. In the event Cooper Rush can play well enough and not even play well enough, can just keep winning with these Dallas Cowboys, I do think that Jerry Jones might be crazy enough or at least care about wins enough to keep Dak Prescott sidelined. It sounds crazy, but we have seen this story before, and Jerry was the author then as well. Shady, you're smiling. Can Cooper Rush create a QB controversy?
I think so. I think he can. I mean, I think it's already started a little bit, right? I mean, hey, if the owner, the general manager talks about it, he brings light to it, it may be some truth to it. Let's just think about this for a second, right? I love Jerry Jones, first of all. I love when he opens up his mouth. I love it. So you talked about Dak, right, replacing Tony Romo. At the time, Tony Romo was making way more money.
Of course.
Dak wasn't making that much money, similar to this situation, right? Cooper Rush is probably making the same amount I'm making, a couple dollars, nothing much. Okay, and then Dak's making, what, $20 million? So I'll say this. Dak went out there making $20 million a year, 100 and something guaranteed.
60.
Okay.
60.
He gave you not a touchdown, 3 points, right? 134 yards, no touchdowns but a pick. Cooper Rush gives you, what, 235 and a touchdown and a win? So one guy's 1-0, one guy's 0-1.
Wow.
I think going forward, it happens all the time in football. Somebody always gets replaced.
Joy.
You never know.
One game.
You never know.
230 yards.
230 yards. He got him.
Whoa!
W, wait, W, don't forget the W.
Okay.
Yeah, get the W in there.
Against the Bengals, who you think are a wash
Bad
this
team,
season.
according to
NFL.
LeSean McCoy.
20-17.
It's the NFL.
Where do we stand, people? Can Rush create the controversy, Joy?
Yes, Cooper Rush can create the controversy because it's Dallas. If this was any other organization, it would not be the case. No, I don't think Cooper Rush is going to play well enough to elevate this roster that we talked about all offseason as not being good enough for Dak to elevate. If he can split the games that Dak is out, that's a win for the Cowboys. That's all you can expect from a backup quarterback. What Jerry is talking about is something that only Jerry can create. You said you love when Jerry opens his mouth.
I really do.
It is wonderful for us. I love anarchy. Give it to me. I need it. This is what we do. I love anarchy. I love chaos. I love it. I don't take a bath in it. But for organizations, for teams that are trying to win championships,
Yeah, that's the problem.
this is not it. But it doesn't matter because this is what Jerry's going to do. We are talking about Cooper Rush, who has played in 2 NFL games in a quarter.
Wins.
Okay, no. He did not come back and win against the Bucs. So he lost that one.
Oh, my gosh.
He won a start last year, and he won a start this year against the Bengals.
Sure.
It was not an impressive game. It just happened to be a win. We're talking about the Broncos being down bad. They got a win. We're talking about a lot of teams that are 1-1. Well, then let's change the narrative around the Broncos then, shall we?
Prescott's got a lot of those, by the way.
Exactly.
Wins are wins.
But you're also allowed to have a bad game. The Packers had a bad start to the season last year. How'd that end up for them? Now, we're not going to talk about the postseason, but you can't go and contextualize the entire career of Dak Prescott off of that one start. But Jerry's going to find a way to do this, and I'm here for the anarchy. I think it means that Dallas is going to have a worse season than I even thought.
But can Rush do it, Dave? Can Cooper Rush create a controversy with Dak?
No. And first of all, I am a beat writer by trade. I got to shout out my buddy John Machota for getting us this video.
Excellent work.
I see you, Johnny.
Excellent,
That's just
John.
fantastic work all the way around. But no, and here's the difference, Emmanuel. We were there together. We were
Covering the Cowboys.
We were doing cover 4, baby. As long as I'm shouting out things from my past.
That probably was boring.
What did Dak have in 2016? Dak stepped into a ready-made juggernaut.
No doubt about it.
They had just drafted Ezekiel Elliott in the top 5.
Yes, sir.
They had 3 of the best offensive linemen in football.
they did.
Travis Frederick was the best center in football. Tyron Smith was still healthy at the time and was the best left tackle. Zach Martin's going to the Hall of Fame. Jason Witten was still there. He's also going to the Hall of Fame.
Sir.
Des Bryant will be in the Ring of Honor.
Yes, sir.
Cole Beasley was a pretty nice little slot. He's
Yes,
going to
sir.
go help
He
the
was a
Tampa
beast.
Bay Buccaneers 6 years later, by the way. What is Cooper Rush stepping into? Cooper Rush is stepping into a mess of an offensive line in Ezekiel Elliott that has 7 years worth of heavy mileage on his legs. CeeDee Lamb's a nice player. What other receivers they got? Dalton Schultz has a knee injury, by the way, right now. We don't know if he's even going to play. What is Cooper Rush doing? Like, who's helping Cooper Rush do this?
So, Dave, I would say
they do not have the talent, and it's not a knock on Cooper Rush.
course not.
They do not have the talent to help a backup quarterback. Sure. Did he beat the Bengals? Yes. Could he beat the Giants? Sure.
Of course.
Can he string together the type of performance that is going to require this conversation, which is what Dak did? 11 wins.
But here's
you know
the
how
thing.
rare it is to win 11 games in a row in
Dave,
the NFL?
Let me take you back to the truth.
Take him back.
Because Dave he's not one of us yet that will lie. First, let's talk a little Cowboys history. Drew Bledsoe, 2005, reunites with Bill Parcells, his old coach, in Dallas. Okay. He gets a 3-year, $25 million deal. He is supposed to be the future, but he's injured and he struggles. By week 6 of 2006, they're like, you know what? Hey, I love you, Drew Bledsoe, Bill Parcells says, but I'm going with Romo. Romo's my guy. Romo was an undrafted player. Drew Bledsoe was a high-paid player. For the record, Drew Bledsoe was the second $100 million quarterback in NFL history, just to contextualize Drew Bledsoe's greatness. So let's start there. The Cowboys slipped and fell into Tony Romo as their starter. They slipped and fell into Dak Prescott as their starter. I would not make it so far-fetched that they could not slip and fall into Cooper Rush. Now, I agree with Joy. I agree with you. It's unlikely. But, boy, it was unlikely that Dak Prescott, a 4th-round pick, who was not even the Cowboys' first quarterback that they wanted to select, as you and I said walking up the hallway, they wanted Paxton Lynch. They wanted Connor Cook. They didn't even want Dak. They stumbled into Dak, and he won enough games to keep Romo, the beloved Tony Romo, on the bench. I would just be a liar to come up here with conviction and say it's not possible when the Cowboys have the Giants, the Commanders, the Eagles, the Rams, the Lions, and the Bears. The only game that I say is unwinnable is the Rams. So for that, I'm just like, Dave, how can you say so much conviction it can't happen?
Okay, because you just listed all that off like those are easy dubs for a Cowboys team that has looked terrible. Like they didn't. Here's the truth that you don't want to acknowledge is that they looked bad against Cincinnati in the long run.
In the long
we
run.
readjusted our expectations because they had Cooper Rush. They had these are the drives they had. First 2 drives of that game were touchdowns.
Nice.
They were nice.
They were nice.
What happens
What
happens at the beginning of games typically?
Scripted, yes, sir.
Scripted
Yes, sir.
drives
We get
where
it.
you have your best stuff.
We get it.
6 plays for 18 yards, 6 plays for 13 yards, 3 plays for 3 yards. The game-winning drive to kick the final field goal covered 35 yards. Like, we are not talking, to Joy's point, about a guy who came in and dealed. We are talking, and like, I hate what it sounds like I'm saying about Cooper Rush.
No,
he did a
be
good
real.
job.
He did.
He stepped in and did the job required of him, which is to find a way to get it done. He was not the reason why they won that game.
Joy, let me come to you. You were, I think, at this network in 2016, may have been your first year when Dak Prescott replaced Romo. You know, because you would have been talking about it on a daily basis with Skip and Shannon, that Dak Prescott wasn't a world beater that year. We mocked Cooper Rush for his 235 yards. I don't have the math directly in front of me. You should know better, Dave. But Dak must have only averaged 200 yards a game that season.
He was about a 230-yard a game
230
passer.
yards a game.
Or 180.
And Dak Prescott only threw for 23 touchdown passes in a 16-game season, roughly 1.5 touchdowns a game. So it didn't take that much. Why don't you – well, you believe it could happen, But why do you doubt it could happen?
We didn't play the entire clip of Jerry talking, but Jerry said exactly what you said, which is nobody thought that Dak was going to come in and replace Romo.
Mm-hmm.
But was Dak on the roster when Romo?
He sure was.
hurt?
He was. He was a fourth-round pick.
Because Cooper Rush was on the practice squad.
It's true.
They didn't have a backup quarterback. So the Dallas Cowboys thought so little of Cooper Rush after training camp that they didn't keep him on the roster. They had him on the practice squad. Again, I love how things sound. Talk to me. But what do you do? What is it that you do? I care more about actions than what you say. The Cowboys themselves said he's not good enough to keep on the roster as a backup quarterback. Dak was. The roster was different when Dak stepped in. I'm not saying that I'm not dogging on Cooper Rush, and this is really unfair to Cooper Rush, who should not be in
asked
this
for none of this, to your point.
For none of this.
Yeah.
But because it's the Cowboys and because Jerry insists on doing this and causing this chaos, we're having this conversation. I fundamentally believe, and I know this is an extreme thing to say today, that Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Cooper Rush. I think he's more qualified
Big
to be
if
the
true.
quarterback of the
Shocking.
Dallas Cowboys than Cooper Rush. I feel comfortable dying on that hill, and if I'm wrong, so be it. And kudos to Cooper Rush and this entire squad that we didn't think was capable of winning a playoff game with Dak Prescott. And to your point about Tony Romo, how many playoff wins does Tony Romo have in his career?
One.
Same as Dak.
How many playoff wins does Dak Prescott have in his career?
One.
So not to diss Tony Romo's career, but are we acting like they made some dramatic change to Tony Romo and all of a sudden the Cowboys were Super Bowl contenders every single year?
Right. I'm saying it's hard to replace a guy like Tony Romo. So they didn't think. So here's the thing: they didn't think that Dak can replace him. Nobody knew that, but he had the chance. He had the opportunity. And when you're a fourth-round draft pick, they want something from you. When you're undrafted, 9 times out of 10, you'll be on the practice squad. That's how it usually works. So it's not like if you're not drafted, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be on the practice squad, and then they can bring you up on the team like they did with Rush. Now, real quick, let's not forget him as a starter. He's 2-0. So let's think about this. If he goes out there and he beats Washington, right, and he goes out there and beats the Giants, so he's 4-0 as a starter. That's when we start talking. He's not that bad. He's kind of cheap. That's how it happens. The same thing when Tony Romo got hurt. Dak did good enough. Oh wow, we might replace Tony with this guy. It's always about getting the production from a cheaper player.
This is fascinating. For clarification, Tony Romo, 2-6, I believe, his playoff record. Same winning percentage as Dak Prescott, but nonetheless, it was not great.
So he has 2 playoff wins.
2 playoff wins.
Oh, so he contributed to those 3 that they've had in the last.
Oh, you're right. He did win one in 09. Yeah. I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
But the fascinating thing for me, though, Joy, is I almost think that makes it more concerning for Dak Prescott for this reason. Dak Prescott hasn't done much as far as winning playoff games either. Tony Romo, as we're now saying, didn't do a ton for the Cowboys winning playoff games, and he's probably most notable for fumbling the snap that would have let the Cowboys beat the Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken, top of the head. 06. Either way, I don't think it's likely, but Cooper Rush, if you find a way to roll, you can beat the Giants. You can beat the Commanders. Eagles going to be tough, Rams going to be tough, but you can beat the Bears and you can beat the Lions. It will get spicy in Dallas.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.